I wanted to point out something that Wes encountered that some of you might also be encountering. It's something that I don't know how to recreate. But what happens is sometimes when, let me get the right section line up. So sometimes when you select an object like this and you do your section and it's perfectly aligned with the clipping plane like that, you can see the line work here. Right? All the line work shows up in this view, but when you do your Make 2D, on some occasions, it might not give you all the line work. Like it might do something like that, right? That's basically what happened to you. So what I've noticed about that is that Rhino's having trouble identifying which lines are on which side of the clipping plane because they're exactly coincident. And you'll see that when we start building things in Grasshopper, that Grasshopper does it too. So what you have to do in that case is if you locked your layer, unlock your layer. And what I would suggest is draw a line off of the location that it's currently in, like that. So you can put it back. And you have to pull it back this way a little bit. So if you just pull it a little bit back, that way it has no confusion about which lines are on which side of the clipping plane. And it should make 2D all of your lines. So give that a shot.
So you draw the line in the top viewport? The line to not confuse it?
It doesn't really matter where. You could even do it in perspective on some weird-ass oblique angle like that. You know, as long as you have a point that you can, after you've done this, move back to.
Okay.
That's it. You just want to make sure that it goes back to exactly that spot. Okay? With that said, right, we have our line work. I guess I'll just roll straight into the export process now. We have our line work. It's ready to go. And all we have to do is just export it and bring it into Autocad. You guys all have experience with Autocad, I think I asked. I don't know if anybody showed up late or anything, but I'm not going to explain a lot about Autocad. So what I'm going to rely upon is that you have a basic understanding of the user interface, some of the basic tools, how to draw a line. And if I do something that you haven't seen before, let me know. Okay, that will be my cue. Just raise your hand and say, this is new, or I haven't seen this, please explain more. And I'll present that particular feature or tool or process in a way that it's like I'm teaching it for the first time. Okay? You guys can do that for me? All right. So at this point, we're going to export this line work. Basically, you don't have to do it as two separate exports. You can do it all as one export. We're going to process it and overlay them in AutoCAD. So with this stuff right here, we select it. We say File, Export Selected. We change our file type to AutoCAD Drawing.dwg. And I'm going to call this one Section Trial. You should call it something appropriate, like, yeah, something like that. Since we are going into the latest version of AutoCAD, it's probably best if you set your settings to default. Though 2004 lines will work fine because it's all the same, really. So that exported the file. I have to start AutoCAD now. So we're going to go to AutoCAD 2016. Oh no, I just started. Yeah, AutoCAD's going to take a good minute or two to get started. So I'll pause while it boots up. And here we are with AutoCAD fully opened up. Some versions of AutoCAD, I'm not sure how these are configured. They have like a splash screen with a bunch of links and stuff. We might be all configured to see this. Do you all see this? Yeah. Okay. So all we really got to do is just open up. In this case, right, because we don't have a pre-existing file, this is a fresh section. We're not doing much with it yet. We can just go to File, Open, and navigate to that location. So I put mine, I thought I put it right here.
It's down there. It's like in shop.
Oh, I thought I put it in all caps. Okay, so this is Autocad. For those of you who are less familiar, right, all the tools are up top. This looks a little bit closer to Grasshopper now, right, with the little mini bars and everything like that. So the gist of it is, and I still haven't quite decided if we're going to do this all entirely in Illustrator or if we're going to do it in AutoCAD. So that's why I brought you into AutoCAD here. We'll see. I'm going to ponder that for Thursday. But the basic setup here is really just to process this in a way that we can get the information to overlay on top of one another and show a section. So something that you're probably all aware of at this point, no, is that a building section, depending on its scale, actually shows sort of a hatch pattern in the walls. This is a good example, right? So you'll notice that the exterior walls here are shown with a black fill, and that fill is called a poché. It comes in various forms. Some cases the poché is white, right? So it's basically not filled at all. Other cases it's gray. In a lot of cases it's black. The general rule of thumb that I'm going to give you is that the larger the scale, the lighter the color, right? And if you think about that in terms of just 3 different scales, right? Like this one, if you think about that as small scale, you can't see any of the detail inside of the walls. It's black because it doesn't matter. The lines are so close together on that wall that it's pretty much just a black line anyway. If it gets a little bit bigger to the point where you can kind of see the void inside the wall, then you're going to want to use gray. And if it gets even bigger than that, to the point where it's more of a wall section than a building section, let me show you what a wall section is. This would be a wall section, something like that. Rather than a building section, then you would leave it white, sort of. And I say sort of because it really depends on what you're trying to communicate. But for the most part, in a very simple drawing, the caveat is that simple drawings typically are going to get pochade black just for simplicity. Yes?
Before in presentations, they yelled at us if we're cutting through a lot, that if you use a black poche, it draws too much attention. So is that, if you're cutting through a lot, is it good to use a gray instead?
Yeah, that's a good tip. Hold on. Let me see if I can show you a large building that's being cut in section. This is kind of a good example. I wish there were more exterior walls, but this has a curtain wall assembly. But what you notice here, like take a look at the subfloors versus the tower itself, right? The very regimented and close proximity of the different floor plates kind of starts to, like, you can't really get a sense of what is space in that. I mean, you can, because you understand, like, this is an exterior wall, it's just glass, basically. I know that. Maybe someone with the untrained eye doesn't know that. But the basement is far more clear about what is space and what's not space. So you're kind of right, and I think that's a very good tip because, you know, up here it has a density that's misleading. Maybe we can find another example. That's a bad section. So this one's probably good enough that it's spacious enough, I would say, that you can use a black hatch and it looks fine. I don't know if there are going to be many good examples of bad sections. Yeah, let's do that. This is more like a badass building section. Nice. That's cool. Yeah, so I mean, the truth of it is we're gonna see it in the class because some of us are gonna make the mistake. It's an inevitable part of learning how to do sections is that you get yourself into a pickle where you do something like that and you can't tell what's inside, what's outside. That's a good example of a bad building section, I think. It's a cool building, but you can't tell.
There's too much detail in the background.
Yeah. Well, background detail is a different thing too. This is probably not good either. Anyway, let's move on. So here in the AutoCAD file, wow, that's really hard to see. In the AutoCAD file, what we're going to do, and this is just, level 1, we're just learning how to put our foot on the bike before we even ride it. But we're going to poche with a hatch. And so the layer just looks like this. I go to the layer that I have over here. So if you select the objects, you can see that it's on layer 5 up there. So layer 5, I can type in hatch. Oh, I'm lagging. Or bhatch. And you have the option to select objects or pick points. I think it's fine to pick points in this case because I know they're all closed. And I can select a hatch pattern for solid. And right now my transparency is 0, so it's going to appear actually solid. So I can just click into all these spaces and it's going to fill it in. Looks like that. Okay, so at that point, oh, I hate that feature. At that point, the simple overlay function is really just to move it over top of the other line work. So I select my section lines and I type in M to move. And I just use my object snaps, right? Object snaps in AutoCAD are the same as in Rhino, pretty much. You have an endpoint. So I'm going to select this endpoint and move it over and drop it right on top of my model where that endpoint correlates with the background information. Okay. So another thing that I would advise that you do here tonight before we get to next week is just drop in another layer for your earth. So I don't go through all these settings yet, but create a new layer. You can call it earth. I'll make it magenta. And my earth is going to be drawn. I don't think our model is actually on the ground like this, but it's going to be. So I'll put it right there.
Wait, is that coplanar to the bottom?
Yeah, it's aligned to the bottom. So I started a line command, and I'm just going to draw one like that. Wow, that is really hard to see up there. Oh my gosh. Okay. Any further questions? Yes?
Do you want a ground hatch? Because I know sometimes that's a thing.
Not yet. We'll talk about it later. Okay.